To really understand the far-right brain slop that went into the assassination of Charlie Kirk, we're going to have to understand groypers. And I apologize in advance, this is going to get very stupid very fast. So most people think that the MAGA movement is the far right of the Republican Party, but in fact they are quite wrong. The far right of the Republican Party is a group known as the groypers, which is a far-right white nationalist coalition that is effectively a personality cult around a young man named Nick Fuentes. Nick's ideology is a mixture of fascism in the vein of Mussolini or Dollfuss, Catholic integralism, or clerical fascism. These are very, very intense and fringe ideological positions. Nick also toys with neo-Nazism and has even quoted himself saying, "I am..." well, you know. Nick Fuentes' goal is to work within the system to push the Republican Party even further to the far right. For him, MAGA is liberalism. And for Nick Fuentes, his biggest rival was Charlie Kirk. There have been what are called groyper wars. Literally 2 separate groyper wars. And you need to understand, when I'm saying that the groypers are a cult, he even has groyper generals organized in a paramilitary fashion. Because Charlie Kirk had a massive organization, even back in 2019 when the first groyper war starts, of 400 chapters at universities across the United States. This meant that Nick saw Charlie as the main person to be taken down so that he would be able to influence young people in the Republican Party more. And more importantly, he also understood he could use Charlie's events to push his own positions and also carve off people into his own movement. This included a tactic known as question and answer trolling, where he'd have his groypers go up and line up one after another and ask increasingly extreme questions to Charlie Kirk to make him seem like a moderate in their eyes. And keep in mind, Charlie Kirk has some incredibly extreme views of his own, but you have to understand there are many different tendencies within the far right. And I need to stress that Nick's views are incredibly misogynistic and also incredibly anti-Semitic. This is one of the main reasons he was against Charlie Kirk, which is because Charlie Kirk was not anti-Israel. And Nick Fuentes' anti-Israel advocacy is something that he was able to carve into getting a lot more of a mainstream audience after October 7th. Because Nick Fuentes is smart enough to know that if he puts out a certain level of comms that is not overtly super far right, then he can get followers based on that. Meaning he was using Palestinian suffering to grow his white nationalist movement. The groypers are driven by memes, as we can see in the engraving in the bullets shot and not shot at Charlie Kirk. We see 4 different memes here, many of them from video games. For example, the one that was shot at Charlie Kirk references a meme that's against furries. A second engraving that's a reference to the very popular game Helldivers, which is actually a satire against fascism. Third, that is a reference to a streamer that sings opera as he's playing first-person shooters and going after people. Or it could be related to one of 2 Spotify playlists for the Groyper Wars, which both feature a remix version of Bella Ciao. The 4th is just a basic internet troll. If you read this, you're gay. Now, recently the Groypers have both declared war on Charlie Kirk last year and also more recently on Trump and MAGA as a general thing. So what we are seeing right here is right-on-right crime. And whether this guy is an actual Groyper or just adjacent to the movement, he's obviously evoking these memes for that purpose. We have to understand that far-right shooter after far-right shooter have used memes to present themselves to the other people in their movement across the internet. And Nick is not a pariah. He has his own think tank, he runs his own major conference. People in the Groyper movement work in the White House and for Republican Congress people. This is something that is part of the far-right world and part of normal politics, and this is incredibly dangerous. It's not that long ago that people's careers ended if they were associated with Nick Fuentes, and now they are just walking along the halls. If you're a young right-winger, you know who Nick Fuentes is, either because you're a follower of his and you look up to him, or you're incredibly against him. You have to work around the reality that Nick Fuentes exists. Nick Fuentes and his Groyper movement represent a much darker future, even more than you can ever imagine from the MAGA movement, which is quite extreme in its own extent. But this is a different vein that could possibly occur, and it is something that we have to all understand that is out there, and preying upon the insecurities of young men that Nick Fuentes is able to recruit across the internet. And this is a dangerous thing for everyone, everywhere. Now, all of this culminates in understanding one final thing. This is based around a theory called accelerationism. This is the idea that if you continue to make things worse, you can kick off the great revolutionary change that you want. And for Nick, he wants to create the literal race war, that he can achieve his final battle in the fascistic sense of this, where all of his enemies are destroyed and he gets to reign supreme as the great leader. And that is a real thing that he wants. That is a real thing that his followers believe. And they are willing to do anything for Nick to make that happen. Thank you for watching. Please do some engagement and give me a donation if you can.
If you celebrated Mr. Kirk because you're unaware of Nick Fuentes and others like him, or if you were quick to blame Democrats without any evidence, I blocked a lot of you. I am thinning the herd because it's apparent you don't know what's happening. Extremists are literally incubated in America every day. There are agents and informants in every group, and whether they're private online or even blue app groups, it doesn't matter. This was allowed, as well as the Ukrainian refugee in North Carolina, who that man clearly was waiting to get on that train. She was a art major who attended school in Kiev, which is quite competitive. They have real art, unlike the States. Working class people can afford to chase dreams, even in the Ukraine. But that's the point. They want riots and uprisings to consolidate power. No one is safe, not even MAGA. Nick Fuentes is Mexican and Italian American. I met several Hispanic men who only identify as European and have extremist views, but the news only covers MS-13, and that is by design, due to people like Mr. Fuentes and others having private benefactors to support their stealth and strategic moves in politics, tech, law, cybersecurity, policymaking, and institutions. I am only aware of how a lot of things work due to choosing to be in company with people who do not think anything like me. A skill that is lacking is observation over offense. Also, it was very obvious that the always ill-prepared and performative Democrats would never have this type of marksmanship, while these other groups are organized, trained in interrogation, access to tech that you have no clue about, and backed by silent benefactors, not just a few dollars from everyday people. So stop with all the uninformed takes. Your favorite influencers nor celebrities will save you. They're paid distractions. Get offline and learn a skill that you can barter. This is not a motivational speech because I'm not a millionaire grifting pastor you pay. Go to church if you want to be lied to and continue to think being knowingly complicit in the age of information does not come with consequences. They saved people in the past decades because the internet did not exist. You have no excuse and none will be afforded to you.